Hi students, I'm Una.
And I'm Scott.
I'm a PTE teacher from the UK.
I'm also a PTE teacher from the UK.
And we've been helping students pass their exams for years.
And now we're excited to help you pass your exam too.
Welcome to the Swoosh English PTE podcast.
Let's get started. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Swoosh English PTE podcast. My name's Scott.
And my name is Una.
And today we're going to go through a listening exercise for the PTE academic examination, highlight incorrect words.
Great.
So how do you feel about this task?
So this is one of those tasks where your vocabulary really needs to be up to scratch, because if you don't recognize a word, which is said in the listening, it's really difficult to decide if it's then an incorrect word in the reading text.
And not only is it your own spoken pronunciation which comes into practice, but it's more so of your listening pronunciation. How can you understand how words are said and how accurate you are actually pinpointing those words in terms of the differences?
Exactly. It's all about pronunciation. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, shall we get straight into the overview of this task?
Yeah, let's do it.
So we just want to assess that this is obviously a listening and reading exercise. Even though it's primarily listening, you do obviously have to read a transcript and then select the incorrect words that you have pinpointed out via the one time you listen to an audio transcript.
Yes, very good. So the correct words will be in the listening and then the incorrect words in the reading text.
Yes,
and you
exactly.
have to highlight those incorrect words. So how do they correlate? Do the words correlate with what you hear in the listening or not?
So it might seem quite easy, but there's a lot more going on than you would expect.
Yeah. For this task, you really need to be able to read and listen. Yeah.
So how long are the audio recordings for this task?
The audio recordings are 15 to 50 seconds.
Well, that's quite a massive difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
So do you think the students would be lucky getting a 15-second recording, or do you think it might
be pretty lucky?
There
wouldn't be too many wrong words there in that one.
No, you never know, could you? Yeah.
Yeah. So unlikely, 15 seconds.
Yeah, it's probably on the upper end of that, probably at least 30 seconds or more. So it could vary. So just be prepared to listen at length for up to that amount of time.
Yeah, and you have 2 to 3 different questions within this task type, like a lot of the listening activities we are finding. And you have 10 seconds before the recording in order to, we'll get into the method in more detail, but of course, 10 seconds to prepare yourself before the listening begins.
There's a lot of things you can do in those 10 seconds to make this activity better for you in terms of your score and the marking, right?
Yes, definitely. Okay, so then how are you scored for highlight incorrect words?
Should I say it or should you say it?
Go for it.
Negative marking is in this task.
Yes.
So what do we mean by negative marking, Una?
So of course, with negative marking, it means that if you select an answer which is incorrect, as in it's actually a correct word in this task, kind of confusing. Yeah. So if you get one and it's not one of the answers that you should have, or one of the words you should have selected, then you will receive -1. And if you select, of course, a correct answer, you receive 1. But what does that mean? It means if you select an incorrect one, then it will take away from the correct answer that you have secured.
So basically, to use the terminology right, if you highlight a correct incorrect word, so to say, if you highlight a word that isn't different, then you will lose a mark.
Yes.
So overall, so you actually can be scored 0 for this, even though you've actually highlighted a few of the correct incorrect words. That's really confusing to say that.
Yeah, stop saying that. It's becoming so confusing. But anyway, negative marking. We all know how negative marking works. So ultimately, do not guess for this task. That's what it's all about. So make sure that you only highlight those words that you are confident about.
And there's no real way of guessing, and it's not like every single reading, listening, audio recording actually has a set amount of marks. It does vary depending on the length. So even if you think, okay, well, there might be 5 marks for this, I'm going to select 5 words. You wouldn't do that normally, and especially you wouldn't do that for negative marking. So is PTE nasty enough that you can actually go into negative scoring for this?
No. So 0 is the minimum score that you can get. It won't go into minus numbers or anything like that. So don't worry about that. So just try your best, select confidently, and hopefully you won't lose any marks due to that old negative marking.
All right.
So what about the method then? Shall we get into that?
So the method can be split into 3 sections. We have before listening, during listening, and then after listening. So we're going to go through the method step by step so you got a good understanding of what you have to do at any given point of this activity. So just to remind you guys that you do have 10 seconds before the recording begins, indicated by an audio indicator. What can you do in those 10 seconds to really emphasize and improve your likelihood of getting a high score for this task?
Okay, so of course in that 10 seconds, you have your text in front of you. So what do you always do with the text?
You read it.
Yeah, skim read it very fast at speed, just for the main topic. Yeah.
Yep. So you want to get an understanding of obviously what you're going to be listening to, because that can actually improve maybe your vocabulary retention, or just have an understanding of what's being said. You might actually have an understanding of the gist, and there maybe you might see a word that has been used out of context potentially. Yeah. But as Una said, you can't be reading the text in any detail. You don't have the time, and nor is it beneficial. You're going to obviously hear it all via the recording. So one thing you have to do, obviously, is skim read it as fast as you can to get an understanding of the gist.
Get a good understanding of the meaning. The meaning. It's really important, And then words that you are going to hear will start to come into your head, even if you haven't read it in detail, and you will have a good idea of what you're going to hear. But yeah, listening for meaning, focus on those words that have the meaning, because those are likely going to be the words that are incorrect, know?
Yes.
It's not likely to be your articles and your prepositions. It's more likely to be your content words.
Your main content words, but stranger things have happened, and we can't say with absolute certainty that an article may be wrong or incorrect. Yes.
Yeah, but focus on the content word. And what about pronunciation then?
Oh, that's important to focus on too. Obviously, you may come across a word and you think, I'm not exactly sure how that word's pronounced. Maybe you obviously look at a word and play it through your head, or even speak it out loud as well, silently to yourself, just so that you're able to anticipate the pronunciation.
Exactly.
And then you might have an understanding of that word could be correct or incorrect. So make sure you focus on that as well.
Yeah, because if you're not familiar with how any given word is pronounced, you think that's a difficult word, well then maybe you will hear it and you think, oh no, that's incorrect. But actually it's correct. You just don't know the pronunciation.
Precisely.
So really trying to go through those words that you find the pronunciation difficult, and, like you say, saying them out loud to yourself, and just see if you can, improve the likelihood of you getting selected the correct words.
Yeah. So what can students do in their own time, maybe to actually improve their listening pronunciation for this?
Yeah. So of course, just making sure that when you come across new words, that you also, go on to Google and have the lady say assignment or whatever it is, and have her actually pronounce the word. Yeah. Also listening to different accents, pronouncing that word, or perhaps American English, British English, the different pronunciation of the word. A word that comes to mind is, of course, aluminium, and it's very different in American English. Yeah, aluminum. Yeah. So, there's many words that I hear, American English, for example, I hear it, I'm like, oh, that's so different to how we say it,
So be able to anticipate and practice in your own time. I'm also trying to assess really if you are the Google lady or not now with that assignment.
Oh, do you think that I would be very good at that?
That was fun. I wouldn't say good, but definitely amusing. Definitely amusing.
I'm glad. Happy to amuse you.
Funny. All right. So just to recap on our pre-listening section, you're going to have 10 seconds to listen. You're going to listen out for any of...
10 seconds to prepare.
Yes, 10 seconds to prepare. 10 seconds to prepare. And then you're going to listen through the recording. You're going to take a note of any of the key content words. They could obviously be the incorrect words. And also just take a note of any words that you may have difficulty with just knowing the pronunciation of as well. Make sure you get a good understanding of that gist too.
Hi all. We're going to grab a quick cup of coffee. While we're gone, go to pte.swooshenglish.com and grab your free PTE starter course, a gift to get you started on your PTE preparation. That's pte.swooshenglish.com for your free PTE starter course.
So let's move on now to the during listening section. What would the first thing a student should do, or even just a list of things that they should do when they're listening to the text?
Well, one of the things to really do this task that's really useful to help you keep up with the text as well as listen is follow along with your cursor. Move your cursor to every word as it is said, and that means that you're really able to concentrate on that word on the reading as it's said in listening. It helps you keep up.
Yep, and also that's just very intuitive as well, because you don't have to actually write any notes in this. We don't recommend you do write any notes at all. It's completely unnecessary. So therefore you can follow along with the text as you're listening as well, and simply click on a word as you hear something that doesn't really work out. So it's very, very intuitive to use that cursor as a listening tool. What could potentially happen if the student actually maybe loses focus or loses pace with the listening while they're reading?
Well, they've lost where they are. If you lose where the listening is according to the reading text, that is really going to, you're going to struggle to get back on track, and you might miss some of the words that have been incorrectly said, or correctly said and are therefore incorrect in the recording or the text. So yeah, really, if you get stuck, it's going to be difficult to find your way again.
It is, yeah. So just keep that in mind, guys. Please make sure that you are able to keep up with the listening and reading at the same time. And it's just simple of using that cursor to read along.
Yeah, and then just simply highlight the word if you think that it sounds different.
That's it. It's clicked and highlighted. That's your selection made. Obviously, you do have time to review your selections at the end, but we'll get into that more as we get to that section.
So I think that students should really pay attention to the sentence stress and where the sentence stress lies. And, pay attention to those words that carry the sentence stress and, like we said, the content words. So listen out for that stress, because it's likely going to be those words that are emphasized.
Yes, it would. Yeah. So mostly it will be the content words. And as Una said, they will be stressed. It will be pretty... Well, obviously, it could be assessed when obviously some unstressed words may be...
Well, that is another point. Make sure that you're not, sometimes native speakers can de-emphasize stressed words. So make sure that you don't fall into that trap of completely ignoring de-emphasized words. So be careful to listen out for de-emphasized words as well, which perhaps are pronounced quickly or pronounced, with a lower tone. Just be careful for that as well.
All right. So... what methods do we have for students to actually pick out words, obviously apart from what you've said, that could be incorrect? What should they be listening out for in the individual word itself?
So listening out for the pronunciation, listening out for the sounds. What do you think? I
think there's a lot of things that are involved. Once, as we say, there could be individual word stress that might be emphasized. For example, the words accept and accept. So even though both of those words have the same word stress on the first syllable, they actually have a different sound as well. Ac and X sound very, very similar, but it's something that might actually happen in...
so you mean like words that have a very similar sound?
A very similar sound, but they could be something that could be very easily overlooked in this task.
Definitely. And that's why it's really important to, before this task, I think it's good to get a list of those words that, have very similar words in the English language. I often do that kind of activity with my students in relation to this task.
Yeah, it's very useful.
Ask them to decide between two different words. And if I, for example, have your friend say one of the words and then you say, oh, you said this one, and really, that gives you an opportunity to really listen for the differences between certain words.
Right. Yeah. So listen out for obviously the key details in terms of the different pronunciations, which may be very similar. As you said, word stress and sentence stress as well. We might be able to predict words that might be emphasized, as well as words that might be de-emphasized as well. Also listen out for maybe those subtle sounds in a word as well, like word endings. For example, ed word endings.
Yeah, definitely.
We have int and as well. We might also have the pluralized verb endings as well, such as s and is.
Yeah.
Very subtle sounds, which actually may be a difference. It could be the difference between saying the word, for example, study versus studied.
Yeah.
These could be
definitely. Those are the things that are going to really make students fall down, when there's those little subtle sounds and they don't really notice the difference within them. So make sure you work on that, definitely.
And obviously, different depending where you come from in the world, every nationality has their own difficulties with certain word sounds they might pick up or not pick up. So it's up to you, obviously, to study in your own time and make sure you're able to pick up on those as well.
Definitely.
And once again, make sure you're aware of a variety of different accents as well, so that you're able to pick out how words are said differently, how words are maybe emphasized or de-emphasized differently as well. And so therefore you eliminate the possibility of you just missing the word, actually being really, really sure about something as well.
Definitely. So what about after listening then?
Well, after listening, there's not really a lot that can be done. But there's one thing I will say that students shouldn't do, and that is second guess themselves.
Exactly.
What's the point?
Good point.
Why should students not second guess themselves after they've listened?
At the end of the day, you only hear this recording once, right? And some of the incorrect words in the text, they could work grammatically. They could make sense. So you can't really base this on your grammatical knowledge and things like that. You need to just go based on what you've heard. And if you've highlighted something because you think it sounded different within that when the listening was going, then trust yourself.
Yeah, it's just really go by your own intuition. Think about why you originally picked that answer. It's basically the best thing you can do because you can't really revise what you've chosen afterwards and think too much about it.
Yeah.
Oh, is this word work grammatically there's no grammatical sense here? Does the word also not fit in context? Or maybe I just heard that word wrong. I think this is actually how this word is said. No,
you will get into a whole different minefield there, The bottom line is the incorrect word can work grammatically and it can also work contextually with relation to the meaning. So basically, this is a task that you're doing as you're listening, and move on.
Yeah. So unlike most of the other tasks, we obviously recommend that you do spend some time afterwards listening to actually complete the task or review. This is a task where we don't actually recommend that you listen once. Obviously, you might want to just double check that you've selected everything that you might have been aware of. You haven't obviously clicked on the incorrect word that you're aware of. But don't spend a lot of time second guessing yourself because there's nothing really positive that can come from that. Trust your instincts and move on. Hopefully, you will prepare for this task adequately. And your listening skills are up to scratch. You know your pronunciation, you know your verb endings, you know what words have been stressed or not stressed, emphasized or de-emphasized.
Definitely.
All right. So that pretty much completes the task. Before listening, make sure that you have read over the transcript. You have got a good understanding of the gist. You've highlighted the words that you might find are emphasized, de-emphasized, and words that also might have difficult pronunciation for you to follow. You then listen through for the various words that you think are and click on the ones that you think are different, whether it's a pronunciation error, whether it's a word stress issue, etc., etc. And then at the end, trust your instincts, don't overthink yourself, and move on.
Definitely.
It's a nice little review. So let's move on now to a few tips for this task. What can students do either during this task or even outside in their own time to improve their chance of success?
So I think at home it's really important to practice your reading and listening at the same time because we don't often do that, We either listen or we either read.
Yes.
So really get transcripts of, TED Talks, for example. You can get those. And then read along with the transcript as you listen to the talk. And really notice, for example, notice the pronunciation of the words that you're reading from the speaker as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, the words will all be the same in that situation. It's just a transcript of what they said.
Not only, that's also a good holistic approach to both tasks as well, where you can improve both at the same time. You may pick up on a reading error by listening or a listening error by reading, and you can work on your mistakes.
Yeah.
But also, just point out the words that you may have difficulty with recognizing the pronunciation of. Look at stress patterns, look at pacing patterns, look at words that are emphasized and de-emphasized, as well as individual word stress. You can pick that up by listening and reading at the same time. Do you also maybe think that students can actually do their own practice with this very easily?
Well, what do you think?
Well, for example, you and a friend could obviously do like a TED Talk or any sort of podcast or listening exercise, get the transcript and get each of you maybe to directly or deliberately change the words. And when they change that word, then you can listen and read around and see if you can recognize those words. Obviously, focus on words that sound similar or even words that can be, they're big important words in the sentence as well.
It's so good to get tasks within, or if you have a friend who's also doing the PTE exam, it's so good to get them to help you and you can make it more fun doing different tasks together and testing each other. Yeah.
Study buddies are important. Yeah,
definitely.
All right. So just do as much practice in your own time. Make it as PTE, highlight incorrect words as you can as well. I also want to emphasize one point that maybe some students may do in this task as well, is that when they come across a word which makes them think during the listening, maybe overthink, what do they have a tendency to do if they overthink about a certain word?
If they overthink a certain word, they have a tendency to get confused.
Get confused and get stuck in that word. So obviously you're going to overthink that word. And then what you're doing when you're overthinking a word and getting stuck on it, thinking, did I hear that correctly? Oh, I'm not sure if that pronunciation was right.
Then you're lost. You've stopped listening to the recording and you need to find your way again.
So potentially actually missing that one word could actually, you might have gotten it correct to begin with, could actually cost you a few extra marks because you may miss out on the other incorrect words. Due to overthinking. So my recommendation for this is don't get bogged down on a word that you are really stuck on. Obviously spend maybe a second or two maximum of it thinking about it, but make sure that you are, if when you're not completely sure, that you move on, find your pace in the listening and continue doing this task.
Simply highlight the word and move on.
Because there are lots of other words that you may miss out on and therefore taken away from your score as well.
The speaker could be keeping up, speaking at quite a fast pace, so they need to keep up with it and keep going on. And make sure that you listen to the whole word. A lot of the time the word might start with the same syllable, but then it ends differently, So make sure that you are listening fully. Don't think, oh, that word starts the same. Oh, I'm going to focus on the next word now, you know? And then sort of stop listening to that word.
Yeah.
So make sure that you listen out to every sound.
So attention to detail is
attention
very
is
important
so
here.
important
It's
here,
very,
yes.
very important. It's very,
Definitely.
very important, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else then, Scott? Any other general
I
tips
guess
for
maybe
today?
the last thing I will say is, well, I guess do as much practice as you can. Make sure you're practicing your listening and reading at the same time, and that you are obviously practicing your own listening, pronunciation, accents, words, speaking speeds, etc.
Definitely practice listening to different paces,
Yeah.
different speakers who speak faster, slower, and everything in between.
And use that cursor as a tool as well. Remember that tip as well. So I guess that's it for our Highlighting Correct Words podcast. We hope that you found this podcast useful and you're able to move forward with this task and get that score that you want in the PTE examination. Thanks for watching today, and we'll see you again for some more podcasts with our PTE podcast with Swoosh English.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Are you struggling with your PTE exam preparation? Are you unsure how to get that score of 65, 79, or even 90? Let us help you get there. Please go to pte.swooshenglish.com and enter discount code PTE10 in order to receive 10% discount on any course.